Welcome to a presentation at Byrider Digital University. In the lesson that precedes this one, titled Understanding Closing Documents and the Closing Process, Parts 1 and 2, I introduced you to the typical documents used to close a deal at the majority of JD Byrider and CNAC locations. In this lesson, I'll show you a demonstration of how those documents can be presented in a professional closing adhering to the business practices advocated by Byrider Franchising Incorporated. Closing with the buyer is a straightforward process that should be accomplished without a flaw. The closer will become better and more polished in his or her presentation if conducting the closing in the same fashion time after time after time. On the screen are the titles of the closing documents that I discussed in the previous lesson. The documents on the left, shown in black, are related to JD Byrider and the sale and service of the vehicle. The documents on the right, shown in green, are related to financing the vehicle and CNAC. There are 22 documents in total. 16 will be demonstrated. The other 6 are specific to the state in which the store is located, not applicable to the deal being demonstrated, or weren't in use when the lesson was recorded. All of the forms not being demonstrated are covered in the previous lesson. The deal you're about to see closed will include an English-speaking buyer and co-buyer who are purchasing a vehicle and have a trade-in. They made a down payment and are purchasing a service agreement. They intend to make payments in person and not through ACH or card payments. Because the customers being closed are English speaking, there is no requirement to have the buyer sign the translator acknowledgement. However, if the buyer brought a translator, it would be appropriate to have this document signed before you proceed with the closing. With or without a translator, it's important to set the stage. After congratulating the buyers on their purchase of their vehicle, introduce the closing by referring to the pre-closing video. The actual closing will be videotaped, and it's desirable to have confirmation that the buyer viewed the pre-closing video to ensure mutual understanding. Make a strong point that although you will attempt to explain all of the documents thoroughly, you want the buyer to ask questions. Also, ask them to write their signatures as they appear on the forms. It is a Byrider franchising best practice that all closings be video and audio recorded, and that the recording be retained for a period of 5 years. Let's see how our closer introduces the closing process and obtains the buyer's first signature.
Congratulations, Pat and Doug, on the purchase of your new vehicle. At this point in time, you should have already viewed our pre-closing video explaining to you all of the documents that we'll go through today during the closing process. It's important that you read each document at any time. If you have any questions, please stop me and I'll be more than happy to explain anything on the documents that you don't understand. The first form that we will have you sign is a consent to audio and videotape this closing procedure, and this is in the event there are questions that arise in the future. It protects both parties. So I'll need your signature on it. Please make sure that the spelling of your names is correct, and that would be how we need you to sign your names on all documents from here on forward.
Are you here?
Yes. Okay, if you could sign just for me.
Moving on, our next document is the buyer's order. The information on this form should parallel the information on the preliminary purchase worksheet. Once signed by the customer, the salesperson, and a Byrider manager, it obligates the buyer to purchase the vehicle. Okay, let's see how our closer handles the buyer's order. But before we do that, it's a good time to mention that all laser-produced forms will print with the word original along with the customer number in the upper right-hand corner of each original form. The word original will be printed in yellow ink that will not reproduce, so you will always know which copy is the original. Okay, let's look at the buyer's order.
Okay, the next document for your review and signature is the buyer's order. This shows the vehicle that you're purchasing, a 1999 Honda Civic, the vehicle identification number, the stock number. It's a 4-door vehicle, and the mileage at time of purchase, 73,421 miles. The numbers that we're going to review here should agree with the preliminary purchase worksheet that you've already signed. We're showing a selling price of $8,000. We're showing a trade allowance of $500, and that trade is detailed here, an 80 Eagle Talon, the vehicle identification number, two-door vehicle, and the mileage and time of trade is 125,000. That brings us to a trade difference of $7,500. We have a document fee of $40, an optional service contract of $795. Those two items subtotal $835, bringing your total sales price to $8,335. Then we have sales tax of $442.40, title fees of $25, plate fees of $186.85, bringing the total cash delivered price to $8,989.25. We're showing cash down with your order that would be paid today of $250, deferred down payment of $500, bringing the total balance due $8,329.25. Now this deferred down of $500 is detailed down here, showing that you have two payments, $250 each. The first one due on 5/25/2005. The second $250 payment is due on June 1st, 2005. Please understand that those payments, it's very important that they're made on or before the due date, and there's no tolerance for late payments on these deferred down payments. And there is also no interest on these payments. Once this vehicle purchase order is signed and the financing is in place, it's also important that you understand that your trade and any cash down paid at this time is non-refundable. Do you have any questions?
No, I don't think so, thanks.
Okay, and I need your signatures below.
This completes part 1 of this lesson. Don't forget to watch part 2 of this lesson, where we will continue our demonstration of closing with the customer. Welcome to a presentation of Byrider Digital University. In this lesson, we will continue our demonstration of closing with the customer. At this time, the closer would normally introduce those documents that deal with titling and taxes. Because these are different from state to state, I'll go to the next document in line, that is the power of attorney. Although the form for your state may look a little different, most states require that you prepare a powers of attorney that allows J.D. Byrider or CNAC, depending on the state requirements, to act on the buyer's behalf when filing documents to obtain the title or register a vehicle. Let's listen to our closer explaining the powers of attorney.
Okay, the next documents for your signature are your power of attorneys. First, you'll sign a power of attorney on the vehicle that you're purchasing, again, the 1999 Honda, and the vehicle identification number. And this form allows us to do title and registration work on this vehicle for you. So I need your signature here, and then Pat, you can sign directly below. And this is the power of attorney on the vehicle that you're trading, a 1980 Eagle Talon. Here's the vehicle identification number. And this again allows us to transfer the title ownership to J.D. Byrider from your names. So I'll need Doug on this line and then Pat directly below.
Federal law requires that the mileage on a vehicle being purchased be disclosed to the buyer at the time of purchase. We use the Federal Odometer Disclosure Statement, which also meets state requirements to satisfy the law. Let's watch our closer deal with the odometer statements.
Okay, Pat and Doug, the next forms that I'll need your signature on are the federal odometer disclosure statements. This particular one relates to the vehicle that you're purchasing. A 1999 Honda Civic. Here's the vehicle identification number. The miles, as of today's date, 73,421 miles. J.D. Byrider will sign on this line stating that the miles are true and correct. I need your signature here verifying that these are the miles at the time of purchase. And here is the odometer disclosure statement on the vehicle that you're trading. And that vehicle listed here, a 1980 Eagle Talon. Here's the vehicle identification number. The miles at time of trade, that's today's date, are 125,000 miles. I need your signature stating that those are the true and accurate miles to the best of your knowledge.
Because this form isn't used in all states, I'm not going to demonstrate it being presented. However, the customer title pickup notice is a simple document used to advise the buyer when they should come to the store to pick up their title documents. The buyer's guide was on the window of the vehicle that the customer purchased. It's a federal document that tells the customer if the vehicle is under warranty. Here is the closer discussing the buyer's guide.
Okay, the next document that requires your signature is the Federal Buyer's Guide. Again, we have a 99 Honda Civic. The vehicle comes with a limited warranty for 1 month, 1,000 miles, where the dealer is responsible for 100% of the cost of these covered systems. There is an additional service contract that you can purchase for an additional cost, which you've elected to take. So we'll get to those papers later, but just to let you know that the vehicle would come otherwise with just a 1 month, 1,000 mile warranty. Now on the back of the document, they list items that can go wrong with vehicles. You just need to familiarize yourself with those, and then I'll need your signature at the bottom of the form.
Do I have to sign this one too?
Yes, and if you have any questions, again, please don't hesitate to ask. Okay, do you have any questions at this point?
The next document is the service agreement that the customer purchased. You close on the document in virtually the same way as you would on a warranty that is included in the price of the vehicle. The service agreement has a little more substance than some of the other documents, so let's see how our closer handles it.
Okay, the next document that needs your signature is the J.D. Byrider Service Agreement. Listed here are your names, your address and phone number, J.D. Byrider, their address and phone number, the vehicle that's covered on this service agreement, which is a 99 Honda Civic, the vehicle identification number, the miles at time of purchase, again 73,421 miles, the coverage terms. This service agreement is good for the next 12 months or 12,000 miles, whichever occurs first. There's a deductible per claim of $25. The purchase price of this service agreement is $795. If there is a problem with the vehicle, it's important that you know to call this number, this 800 number listed here, and they'll direct you on what you need to do in order to correct the problem with the vehicle. On the back of this agreement are your covered systems. Have your engine, electrical, transmission, front wheel drive, and rear wheel drive. Listed here are the covered parts to those systems, and then listed here are examples of non-covered parts. I need you to read both of these columns carefully. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. I also need you to understand that if a dispute arises from this agreement, there is an arbitration clause that's included, and we'll discuss this a little later in the closing when we get to the retail installment contract. So again, please take your time, read the covered items, and if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
To avoid any claim by the buyer after the sale that they were unaware that the service contract was optional, we have them sign a buyer's statement regarding the purchase of additional items. This form would also be used with any other optional purchase. Okay, let's watch our closer presenting this document.
Okay, the next form that requires your signature is the statement regarding purchase of additional items. And basically what this form states is that you're aware that you purchased an extended service agreement at an additional cost and that it wasn't a requirement as part of the sale, that again, it was a voluntary purchase. So I need both signatures on the bottom of the document, please.
It's common that minor work needs to be performed on the purchased vehicle at the time of the sale. When this occurs, a service order is prepared documenting the work to be performed. Conversely, many stores use this form to document that no work has been promised to the customer. Here's the service order being presented by our closer.
Okay, the next document that requires your signature is the service order. And basically, this documents any promised service work that needs to be performed to the vehicle that you purchased. And it has the 800 number here for dealer services. It's important that would be the phone number that you call to schedule this work. As you see, we've notated that we're going to replace the radio for you. It was inoperable at the time that you took your test drive. So, again, the 800 number, you would call, make your appointment there. It's also important to know in the future when you have an issue with the vehicle, this is the same number that you would call to schedule any other service work, and it's important to know that you need to call dealer services prior to having any work done to your vehicle. I just need your signature on the bottom.
Although I don't have it demonstrated, the last document associated with the vehicle and JD Byrider is Service Center policies. This document explains to the buyer who they should call in the event that the service work is required. It also establishes the policies for loaner cars and towing. Well, that's it for this part of the lesson. As soon as you have a chance, come back and complete the next part that demonstrates the use of finance-related documents. Until then, have a great day, and I'll be speaking to you again soon from Byrider Digital University. Welcome to a presentation of Byrider Digital University. This part of the lesson demonstrates how to conduct a professional closing when a JD Byrider vehicle has been purchased. In parts 1 and 2 of the lesson, you saw how to close on documents associated with the vehicle and JD Byrider. In this part, you'll see how to close on documents associated with financing the deal in CNAC. We'll look at the buyer's agreement to obtain and maintain insurance first. Because it's a contractual requirement that the buyer purchase and maintain insurance for the life of the contract, it is important that the buyer be aware of this requirement and the consequences should they fail to do so. Let's listen in as our closer presents this document.
Okay, the next document is the agreement to provide insurance. Basically, this form is telling us that you've agreed to carry fire, theft, and collision loss coverage on the vehicle with no more than a $500 deductible, naming CNAC as the loss payee, and this insurance needs to be enforced throughout the life of the contract. If at any time this policy lapses, you would be considered in default of the contract. Okay.
The deal being demonstrated has a co-buyer. We want that person to understand that they are obligated to the deal in the same manner as the buyer. Here is our closer discussing the notice to cosigner.
Okay, the next document that requires your signature, this is a signature I will need from you, Pat. is the notice to co-signer, and basically what this states is that in the event that the first party doesn't meet the obligations as explained in the retail installment contract, that you would be responsible for those conditions. So again, you're both equally responsible for the retail installment contract. Just need your signature.
It's advantageous for collection personnel to have a third party to speak to when, for whatever reason, the customer can't be contacted. We use the third party contact authorization form to identify a person of the customer's choice who is authorized to discuss their account in the customer's absence. Let's listen as the closer discusses the third party contact authorization.
Okay, the next form that requires your signature is a third-party contact authorization form. And because of the nature of your employment, it's difficult at times to reach you. So what we've done here is we've agreed to use Josie Jones, who I believe is your contact, as a third-party contact. So anytime we have trouble reaching you or we need to communicate information, we would contact Josie and she would be a party that would hopefully reach you and get that information to you. Okay? I just need your signatures at the bottom.
Although not demonstrated here, the next document presented to the customer is the irrevocable limited power of attorney. Once the buyer signs this document, it authorizes CNAC to act on the buyer's behalf to secure our collateral. For example, the POA allows CNAC to recover a vehicle that is being stored in an impound lot or negotiate a settlement with the buyer's insurer should their vehicle be involved in an accident. This document stays in force for the life of the contract. Costs incurred by CNAC implementing this POA are added to the buyer's account. Obviously, the most important document that the customer will sign is the retail installment contract and security agreement that formalizes the deal. Care must be taken to fully disclose those elements of the contract mandated by the federal government and those elements of the contract that are of importance to CNAC, such as the arbitration clause. Our closer will demonstrate closing the document a page at a time, so let's watch as our closer begins with page 1.
Okay, the next document that requires your signature is the retail installment contract and security agreement. This is an important document. It's quite lengthy, so I'd like you to take your time. We'll go over each aspect of it. If at any time you have any questions, please feel free to ask those questions. Each page will require both initials at the bottom, so we'll go page by page. The final page will require your full signature. Before you sign your complete signature on that final page, I'm going to ask you to take your time, go through the document, and make sure that you're understanding every portion of it. And again, if you have any questions, please stop me and I'll be more than happy to answer them. Okay. Page 1 shows the seller, J.D. Byrider, and their address. Purchaser, Pat and Doug, your name and address, and I'd like you to just verify and make sure that that is correct, spellings and address is correct. Okay. The vehicle being purchased is a 99 Honda Civic, the vehicle identification number. It's being purchased used. Trade-in description is an 80 Eagle Talon, vehicle identification number. Payment terms. We have amount financed of $8,239.35. To make it a little easier, we'll compare it against your buyer's order, which we had reviewed the numbers prior to. So again, matching balance due, $8,239.35. We have an annual percentage rate of 21%, and finance charges accrue on an actual or 365-day basis. Further down the page, again, we have annual percentage rate of 21%. Finance charge, which is the amount that the credit will cost you, is $3,000.45. And again, this is the amount that the finance charge will be if all payments are made on the due date. The amount financed, $8,239.35. Again, is matched up to your buyer's order. Your total of payments is $11,739.80, which is the finance charge plus the amount financed, including your deferred down payment. Total sale price, which includes your down payment of $1,250, which includes your deferred down and your cash down at time of sale, brings you to $12,489.80. Your payment schedule is as follows. We have two deferred down payments of $250 each. The first one due on May 25th, 2005. The second installment of $250 is due on June 1st, 2005. Then you have 78 contractual payments of $144.10 due bi-weekly beginning July 2nd, 2005. Bi-weekly being every other week. And please understand that these payments are due on or before the due date. There is no grace period on this contract, and we have no tolerance for late payments. So again, on or before the due date. Do you have any questions? Okay, you just initial at the bottom. Okay, the second page of your retail installment contract contains the itemization of amount financed. I've left your buyer's order here again so we can compare numbers as we go. The vehicle price, including sales tax of $442.50, equals $8,442.50. Your optional service agreement, which was $795, is added to that, which brings your cash price to $9,237.50. Your cash down payment, which we collected today, was $250. You have two additional payments of deferred down, which equal $500, bringing your total cash down to $750. Trade allowance of $500 added in brings your total down payment to $1,250. When we subtract that from the original selling price, that brings us to $7,987.50. We're going to add in your license fee, dock fee, title fee. Those three items subtotal $251.85. Then brings your total amount financed to $8,239.35, which again matches the bottom of your buyer's order. The next section covers property insurance. Again, you've agreed to provide fire, theft, and collision coverage on the vehicle through the term of the contract. Your deductible cannot exceed $500, and you need to make sure again that CNAC is listed as the loss paid. Down here it talks about the optional service contract that you purchased for 12 months, 12,000 miles, whichever occurs first. And I just need your signatures, or I'm sorry, your initials on the bottom of each. Okay, the next two pages of the retail installment contract have information about the binding arbitration clause. Basically, what it explains here is if you have a dispute with either J.D. Byrider or CNAC that relates to the purchase, sale, or financing of the vehicle or the service contract, that this dispute would automatically go to binding arbitration. Now that amount would be in a claim of excess of $10,000, and the purpose of the binding arbitration is that it does save attorney costs for both parties involved. I'd like you to take your time, read each part and initial it again at the bottom of each page. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
It's the second page as well.
Yes. Okay, the final page of the retail installment contract, which I talked about earlier, requires your full signatures. Now, prior to signing this page, I'm going to give you pages 1 through 4, and I'd like you to review again each and every page. Make sure there isn't anything on here that you have a question about. If there is, I'd be more than happy to answer those questions for you. After you're through reviewing this, I just need, again, full signatures on page 5. Okay?
This completes part 3 of this lesson. Don't forget to watch part 4 of this lesson where we will continue our demonstration of closing with the customer. Welcome to a presentation of Bywriter Digital University. In this lesson, we will continue our demonstration of closing with the customer. We have learned over time that it is important to reinforce those elements of our program that can lead to success for both your franchise and the buyer. Most of these elements are included on the Buyer's Statement of Understanding. This can be a lengthy document, so I'm going to show you how our closer both starts and ends the presentation, leaving the items in the middle out.
Okay, the next document that requires your signature is the J.D. Bywriter Buyer's and Co-Buyer's Statement of Understanding. Basically, this is a 2-page document, and it covers several points referencing obligations you've already agreed to, but this is a reinforcement of those obligations and a review, basically. Each point I'll read to you individually. After I'm finished, I'll ask you to initial. Both of you will need to initial each point. And on the second page, when we're complete, I'll ask for full signatures. If you have any questions on any of these points, if you're unclear about anything at any time, please stop me, feel free, and I will answer your questions for you. Okay? Okay, the first point. I understand that I am purchasing a used vehicle and that further mechanical problems may occur. I understand that even though I may encounter such problems, I am still obligated to make my payments to CarNow Acceptance. I understand that I am responsible for any repairs not covered by the extended service agreement if I elected to purchase this extended service agreement. Initial. Okay, the final point on this document, CNAC may provide information to credit bureaus about an insolvency, delinquency, late payment, or default on my account to include in my credit report. Okay. Now at the bottom of this document it says I have read and fully understand the above statement. So I'm going to ask that you have both signatures now.
It's fairly common that a buyer leave the store without providing CNAC with required information, such as a complete list of references or proof of residency. CNAC requires that the customer sign a requested additional information form that lists the missing information, as well as a date that the information is